of just letting everything get to me to the point that I feel trapped. I want to start looking at the little things in my life that make sense. Because there's so many things that make sense. I don't know why I'm
sad. Why therapy? Great question. I thought that I could deal with my emotions completely on my own, and it's not easy to accept vulnerability. It's not easy to accept that you're weak. It's not easy to accept that you have feelings. It's not easy to just navigate that stuff, right? Getting to the point where I realized I needed to deal with my where I realized I needed to deal with my feelings instead of running away from them or excusing them was at the point where I was like, "Hey, I don't feel like myself anymore." And I had to reach this point where it was just like a dead end, kind of. Like I had been striving and running away and chasing things. It was like the first time I took a full stop, because it's like this liminal period where you're transitioning from one phase of life to the other, and in between that, I think I was super uncomfortable and just unsure of what was going on. And so in that process I realized, like, hey, if you're gonna pursue this is the time to do it. It was an extremely humbling experience to accept the fact that I needed to go to therapy. This extreme isolation, this extreme independence, it wasn't coming from like the healthiest place. I know that it's a privilege, and I know that not everybody has access to all of these sorts of things. It's not easy, and I even at one point in my life, like, I was struggling because I didn't feel like I had the access to any of these resources or things, and nor did I grow up with the tools, of learning how to take care of my mental health, or how to, be the best version of you. Like, I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't There was no blueprint for me to like follow, right? And so I think that in a way, being at this stage in my life, I finally realized, like, hey, I can do this. And it was a very liberating moment to just feel like I had a choice. I just thought it would be nice to reflect on some of the major things that I've learned while being in therapy this past year, while also just kind of, giving myself the space to talk about everything that I feel and everything that I've learned, and what has been the most useful for me, and the certain kinds of topics and themes and things that I've applied to my life and that have really made a difference in the way that I see myself and the way that I see the world and the way that I see people. And so I hope that these little fragments of knowledge and wisdom might inspire you to, transform the way that you perceive yourself, and maybe even inspire you to give yourself your best chance. So let's keep it moving. The Art of Neutrality. Okay, I love this. It's like one of those things that's so simple, but you're like, how did I miss this? When you're constantly labeling things as good or bad, you're taking away space for you to actually just exist, right? Because you're so busy in the labeling. You're so busy trying to validate things as either good or either bad. And so I think that, for the longest time, I always needed everything to have an explanation. Everything had to have a label. Everything had to make sense. Having to constantly shift between good and bad, and wanting more good and wanting less of bad, and like, it was like a lot of energy spent on trying to just understand things instead of just being. Being in a place of neutrality, to me, means that you're able to stand in the middle and be completely okay with that. To be completely okay with not everything being good or not everything being bad. It kind of just is. Neutrality is about taking things as they are and not always trying to have an explanation for everything and not always trying to label everything. Being taught the importance of being able to sit in the middle of things instead of always gravitating towards one thing or the other, I think has really just saved me a lot of energy, and to pour that energy kind of back into myself instead. So instead of trying to validate my external reality and trying to label and make sense and get stuck in this cyclical mess of trying to just validate everything and everyone outside of me, I was like, hold up, like, none of this matters. Especially when you're labeling things, I think it just takes away from you experiencing life because you're trying to achieve one thing or get rid of the other. Response versus a reaction. Oh my god, I needed this one. Not everything deserves your response. I used to think that in order for me to live a fulfilling and active and present life, that I needed to respond to everyone. It took a lot of energy trying to just navigate responding to every situation in my life. It took a lot of time for me to get this one right. Um, as somebody who I think is emotional and somebody who's extremely expressive and extremely communicative, and I tend to react to a lot of things, and in the past I would not think about anything. Like, I wouldn't think about my reactions. I would just simply react without having any second thought about what I was going to say or if what I was saying was even making sense. It inserted me into things that I didn't need to be in. And I think wanting to constantly react and get involved with everything all the time, it's very exhausting. And so when in therapy I learned about this idea of a reaction versus a response, my mind was like, it was blown. I just learned that, like, the difference between a reaction and a response is that a reaction is something that's instant and a response is something that you actually think about. So the space in between the cause and the effect is the difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction has a very small space in between, whereas a response has a very large space. And in that space, you're actually contemplating and thinking and being mindful of what you're saying. When you learn to actually respond and to take some time to think about what you're saying and to think about what it is that you're going to do next, it's so helpful and it takes away a lot of the pressure. Like, when you're anxious and when you're somebody that has a lot of anxiety, your thoughts are just always running. They're always running, and you don't even know where they're gonna go, but they're just going. Reminding myself that I'm allowed to take a pause, I'm allowed to respond to something in a highly intuitive and intelligent way instead of having to react very quickly, has saved me, I think, a lot of energy. I don't have to be a part of everything. I don't have to get involved in everything. I don't have to always have the last word, or I don't have to always say the right thing. Like, I don't have to react all the time. Making better choices. Yeah, you have to make better choices for yourself. My mom used to tell me, she would say, Jasmine, the only person who's ever gonna really look out for you is yourself. Like, really? Like, somebody who's really gonna honor you and respect you and love you to your fullest, completest self, the person who's gonna, you know, give you joy and happiness and peace, like, that's me. Trying to use external things to validate myself hasn't worked. I have this very, very, like, deep understanding of the role that I play in my life and the power that I have to change it. Making better choices for me means being fully aware of all of my needs and striving to be the greatest version of myself no matter what circumstance I'm in. I think I'm my greatest advocate. I'm not striving to be something that I'm not. I've just completely, I think, shifted the idea of what it means to make better decisions for myself. In the past, I lived in a state of victimization. I would always, victimize myself, and I would put myself down, and I almost felt comfortable in the self victimization. I was comfortable in feeling bad about myself because that became the story that I kept telling myself. I've reached a point in my reality and in my life where I no longer feel attached to that story. I feel like a completely reborn person who has unlimited potential to shape the way that they want to be in this world, and it's so liberating to not be chained by your past and your emotions, right? It feels so good to be able to just look back and separate yourself from it. Making better choices for me means striving to be better than the person that I was yesterday. It means being better than the person that I was a year ago, and as long as I'm doing that, that's all that matters to me. I want to do better because I know that if I make better choices, I'm ultimately also making the world a better place. Reflections. Instead of swimming, as Dory once said, like, just keep swimming, just keep going. I think I would actually say the opposite. I would tell you to stop. When you're stuck in your feelings, when you're trapped and consumed by them, and I know how that feels like, trust me, it's so hard to just stop. Everyone everywhere is telling you to keep moving, keep pushing, keep going, even though you don't know where you're going. Like, I've been told so many times, you gotta just keep moving, Jasmine. You gotta keep going. Don't give up. But like, I don't even know what I have. To sum up my experience in therapy and to sum up the most important thing that I've learned in life is to just stop it. Like, stop. Stay still. Sit in your feelings. Sit in the mess of your emotions and see it as it is. Have the courage to see the beauty in the mess of your emotions. Have the courage to take a pause, to take a break, to breathe, and really analyze what is happening to you. Being anxious for me caused me to just keep running without any direction, and I needed to take a break. And it might, taking a break for me meant detaching myself a little bit from reality, just a little, so that I could finally take time to explore myself instead. I would say that, therapy has been such an important tool for me. It has been really life-changing to finally honor my emotions for what they are instead of running away from them. I got tired of running away from my feelings. Living in a state of anxiety, it feels like you're always running. You just keep running. And I was running. Like, I was running as fast as I could. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what was happening, but I just kept running because I was scared. And I didn't want to be driven by fear anymore. I was tired of living in a state of fear, to be honest. I wanted to live in a state of flow. I didn't know I could, but now I know. Like, I can do better. I can be a better person. You just have to stop. You gotta sit with it. You have to sit with it if you're gonna fully understand it. I am not ashamed of my feelings, and I am not ashamed of my emotions, and I am not ashamed of saying that I don't know what's gonna happen next. I don't know where life is going to take me. I don't know who I'm meant to be. I don't know any of it. And that's so liberating. It took 23 years for me to learn that I'm allowed to just be, that I'm allowed to exist as I am without any parameters, without any boundaries or restrictions, that I can just exist as a complete and whole human being without any fear or any anxiety. I just felt spiritually connected to this piece of work. The only reason I bought it was because of this mouse. Do you have anything important to say today for today's discussion? Thank you.